Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this Sunday morning, January 11th. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. SpaceX is preparing for the first of a new type of rideshare mission for the company. It's part of its dedicated small sat rideshare program. This is called Twilight, not to be confused with the book or the film franchise, but rather one that's launching a series of payloads to a dusk-dawn sun-synchronous orbit, set to depart from Space Launch Complex 4 East, coming up here at the time you see on your screen, 8:44 a.m. Eastern. For those on the West Coast, 5:44 a.m. Pacific, or 1344 UTC for our friends joining around the world. For those who are also wanting to keep tabs on what's been happening with the progress with SpaceX's activities here in Florida, of course, we're keeping a keen eye on the Starship Tower over at Launch Complex 39A, where teams have been working with the ship quick disconnect and may be posturing to hoist it at some point later today. Whenever it does happen, you can check in and see that lift in work on our 24/7 live stream at Launchpad Live right here on the YouTube channel. It's working around the clock for you day and night. So whenever they do lift it, if you'd like to see it live, that's where you can go and check it out. Meanwhile, live here in California, weather looking decent for this early morning launch. Taking a look from the satellite overview, courtesy of NOAA's Goes West satellite, you can see there are some clouds in the area, but overall, pretty good outlook for the Vandenberg area. Cold, apparently, but not too cold to launch. So if you're in the vicinity of the pad or a little bit further flung to the east, let us know if you're able to catch a glimpse of the rocket. We'd love to see what you're able to capture, either in photo or video. Be sure to tag us on X. You can find us there or other social medias. We are simply at Spaceflight Now. Meanwhile, time, as you can see here on your screen, T-minus 26 minutes, 50 seconds and counting to the planned liftoff of the Twilight mission. Certainly appreciate the nearly 1,000 of you who are watching along with us live this morning, either getting up early or if it's at a more reasonable time in the day, wherever you're watching globally. Thanks for taking a bit of time out of your day to be with us here. You could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button, sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of today's broadcast. Our photographers, of course, have this mission off since this is a West Coast venture, but they'll be back in action before you know it, as we've got a run of Starlink missions from here in Florida coming up for you. Also, next weekend is currently the no earlier than date for the rollout of the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft from the Vehicle Assembly Building. That's currently targeting rollout beginning on Saturday, the 17th. So we hope you'll join us for our live coverage of the emergence of the 322-foot tall rocket that will carry the first astronauts around the moon and the closest approach to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. If you're on our X account, we shared the launch windows that NASA published on Friday, the various opportunities that they have to launch in February as well as March and April, along with the times there. And to paraphrase a quote from one of our friends and former colleagues, Stephen Clark, now over at Ars Technica, night owls can rejoice since 14 out of the 16 opportunities are launches in darkness. So, selfishly, I would love to see Artemis launch during the day, but there's scant chance of that happening with this mission, unfortunately. Maybe Artemis 3. We'll see a daytime SLS launch. Nevertheless, bringing things back here to the launch of the Falcon 9 rocket, we are just about 23 and a half minutes, a little bit ahead of that, before the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket that you see here on your screen. This is a photo shared by SpaceX when the rocket went vertical, and a peek inside the payload fairings at the top of the rocket as well, showing a glimpse of some of the various payloads that are set to deploy throughout the course of this mission. There are 40 deployment sequences listed by SpaceX throughout the course of this mission, starting just a little bit past 1 hour post liftoff. Internet sleuths have been doing what they do to capture and contextualize all of the various spacecraft that are in this stack here on the right-hand side of your screen. It's believed that the very top of the stack, that is the Umbra 12 payload, one that we'll talk a little bit more about here in just a bit. On the left-hand side, if you go down the left of the stack, the spacecraft that's got the sort of bluish tinted in this photo solar panel with a sort of silvery looking ring at the end, that is NASA's Pandora spacecraft. One of 3 NASA related payloads on this mission. And at the bottom right, down there, jutting out just beneath, or at the just above the sort of the lip of the payload fairing on the right-hand side of your screen, it is believed to be the Black Cat CubeSat, one of 2 NASA-backed CubeSats on this mission today. Those 3 bronze tinted, protected spacecraft, those appear to be the satellites from Kepler Communications, companies launching 10 300-kilogram class satellites to expand its optical data relay network. Kepler Communications says that each satellite has a minimum of 4 optical terminals, and the system is designed to be compatible with the U.S.'s Space Development Agency's optical communications standards. Just about 20 minutes remaining on the clock here. SpaceX has been fueling its Falcon 9 rocket at the pad, and at this point, they are chilling the feed lines prior to the loading of liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage, which should start at the 16-minute mark. Just a little bit past that point is when SpaceX should start to share live views of its Falcon 9 rocket as fueling is underway. I want to give a quick overview of the Pandora spacecraft in this video produced by NASA. But before I do, real quick, just want to give a shout out to our channel member community here on YouTube who make this and every other live launch opportunity possible. So thanks to folks like Sulfur for Lunch, M. Teresa, Cumulus Granatus, Mark P., Hockey Ham, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. And with that, we'll turn you over to this video, and there's no narration, but a little bit of music that, unfortunately, the original music NASA had, we don't know if it's copyright, so we've swapped it out for some non-copyright music. And there'll be some infographics on the screen to give you an overview of this NASA's Pandora mission. And there's a snap overview of the Pandora mission. This spacecraft has a roughly 5-year span to conduct its science observations. The telescope that it uses is 17 inches wide, or about 45 centimeters, developed by the Corning Incorporated as well as Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. As it's making these observations of the various exoplanets, it will pause on each in its star, making 10 observations of each, with a total observation time per exoplanet slash star, roughly 24 hours in total observing time. It's got about 39 exoplanets in its sights, connected to 20 stars. This mission has a budget cap of $20 million, again, for that 5-year lifespan. Just about 15 minutes to go before the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Pandora mission, along with everything else bundled in SpaceX's Twilight rideshare operation. For those who've been keeping tabs on what's been going on with the International Space Station, of course, the Crew 11 quartet is set to return to Earth with an undocking on the 14th and a splashdown off the coast of California, now set for the 15th, as things currently stand, weather permitting. Before that happens, there will be a change of command ceremony in which NASA astronaut Mike Fink will turn over command of the International Space Station, which he's held for just a little over a month now or so. Command of the space station will be handed over to Sergei Kudryashkov. That ceremony will be live streamed by NASA starting at 2:35 p.m. Eastern on Monday, January 12th. In a message shared this morning to his LinkedIn profile, current ISS commander Mike Fink uh, posted a lengthy message. Essentially, you could sum it up by him saying thanks to all the people on the ground who've been supporting them through this transition, letting them know that first and foremost, you're all okay. And as you can see, we've got live views of the Falcon 9 rocket here on your screen. One thing to draw your attention to as we're looking at this Falcon 9 rocket here is you've got the gray band on the Falcon 9's second stage. That's a protective addition to the rocket's upper stage to keep the propellants on that part of the vehicle at the correct temperature in periods of either long stretches of darkness or long stretches of sunlight. This is an overview of the orbit that these payloads will be flown to, that dawn, dusk, sun-synchronous orbit. As you can see, just above that gray band, you see a little bit of vapor on the second stage as liquid oxygen has been flowing on board the rocket's upper stage for a few minutes now. SpaceX commentator notes that the weather's still green. The range is ready to support this mission. Just under 11 minutes to go. We're going to peel away from the rocket for just a second here to talk about where it's going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Talking a little trajectory here. Falcon 9 rocket, upon departure from Space Launch Complex 40, will fly on a southerly trajectory to send these various satellites and CubeSats and otherwise small sats on their way to that dawn, dusk, sun-synchronous orbit. The booster being flown on this mission, B-1097, it's going to be making its fifth trip to space and back today. Not landing on a drone ship this time, but rather it will perform a flip maneuver and return to landing zone 4, adjacent to the launch pad. A touchdown is expected about 7.5 minutes post liftoff. Again, this will be the fifth flight for B-1097. in the SpaceX fleet. Also, this will be the 32nd time that SpaceX lands a booster back at LZ4. Over the course of 2026, the company will be working to bring alive Space Launch Complex 6. SpaceX has been granted permission by Space Launch Delta 30 and the Department of the Air Force to convert that pad into supporting both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch operations. SpaceX also has permission to launch up to 100 times from Vandenberg Space Force Base. And that includes up to 5 Falcon Heavy rocket launches. In addition to recovering the booster, SpaceX also wants to retrieve the payload fairings on this mission. Those will splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean further downrange. We're coming up on 7.5 minutes before liftoff. SpaceX giving an overview of how it performs collisions in space. Let's go ahead and let SpaceX describe this in more detail.
Casting their location and flight plan to keep airspace safe. And the same needs to be true in space. When satellite operators continuously share their satellite's ephemeris data, it allows other satellite operators to detect upcoming close approaches sooner and more accurately, and perform collision avoidance maneuvers if necessary. With everyone's support, we can bridge that launch COLA gap and mitigate any risk to orbiting spacecraft,
Engine fill.
ensuring a safe environment for humanity to explore Earth orbit and beyond.
As you just heard with that call out, the engine chill sequence is underway. At this point, SpaceX is flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps to help protect those 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the booster from the risk of thermal shock and damage. SpaceX is going over the various pieces of their Falcon 9 launch vehicle, so we'll go ahead and follow up on that cue as Stage 1 RP-1 loading wraps up. This is a look back inside the payload fairings, which stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Fairings are made up of a carbon composite material. Moving on down the rocket, just beneath the payload fairings, which we'll see here in just a second, is the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a MVAC engine. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired multiple times on today's flight as it places the various spacecraft into their intended orbit. There are a total of four burns of the upper stage engine prior to the final deployment sequence going into effect. The booster again, this is B1097. Teams are preparing for the retraction of the strong back. Both the upper stage and the booster stage have the same prop mix, RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene, combined with liquid oxygen. The booster produces 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. You can see now the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings are opening up, and the large truss structure behind the rocket from this vantage point will recline about 13 degrees away from the vehicle. It'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. As we're watching the progress of preparation for this mission to launch, at any point in time, you can head on over to our website, spacelightnow.com, if you'd like a more thorough read up on the mission and some of the payloads on board. Certainly appreciate the nearly 3,000 of you who are watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into our live launch coverage. I also want to thank a few folks for your super chat messages here this morning. Big thanks to the Kaiser 2023 for the $5 super chat. Some kind words saying best voice to listen to the SpaceX launch. Always love listening just for your voice. Godspeed, SpaceX.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Good call on stage 1 liquid oxygen loading. We should hear a similar call regarding the second stage LOX tank right about the 2-minute mark. Also want to thank Michael Dorn for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Michael, who says, good, beautiful morning from Redondo Beach, California. Clear skies here. That's always wonderful to hear. And Ernie Sierra with a $2 super chat saying, let's go SpaceX, let's go. Coming up on the final 2 minutes before liftoff.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. That venting you're seeing are the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
This is SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. Coming up in about 20 seconds, we should hear the call that the Falcon 9 is entering into its automated startup sequence.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that, we're just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are in fact go for launch. And we did not hear the go for launch call. Standing by.
T-minus 3 seconds. LDs go for launch.
And a late go for launch call. So we are just about 20 seconds to go. We're going to step back on commentary and watch with you through liftoff. We'll be back on the other side.
T-minus 15. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Twilight. Vehicle's pitching downrange.
M1D, chamber pressure nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We're currently throttling down to prepare for max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic stresses on the vehicle.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Max Q is reached when the air density of the atmosphere decreases faster
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
than the increasing speed of the rocket.
Max Q.
And there's the call out for max Q. Merlin engines are now back at full power, and we're out of the throttle bucket. Now we have several events coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, stage separation, second engine start, or SES1, and the boost back burn.
MVAC chill.
Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, where the first stage separates from the second stage. Then the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as second engine start 1, or SES1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and our payloads to orbit.
Trajectory.
Then we'll see the start of the boost back burn on the Falcon 9 first stage, followed by fairing separation, where the fairing will jettison from the second stage as it's no longer needed to protect the payloads once we're in space.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there you heard and saw those events that happened back to back, including main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start 1, and the boost back burn. Coming up next will be fairing separation in just a few seconds from now.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there we just heard confirmation of fairing separation, along with a great view of those two halves separating from the vehicle on your screen. As a reminder,
A little more than 3 minutes into this mission now. So far, everything appears to be going nominally for SpaceX. The good liftoff, stage separation, booster on its way back to California. Boost back shutdown just occurring on the left-hand side of your screen. Coming up next will be the start of the 3-engine entry burn, which will dramatically slow the booster down. You can see the hypersonic grid fins deployed there on the booster. A little dark, little grainy, but you can make those out just barely. Those puffs that you're seeing between the grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters, which help the vehicle adjust its attitude or positioning as it prepares for the start of that entry burn. Just a little more than 5 minutes to flight now. At this point, we're just about a minute away from the start of the entry burn, which will last just a little more than 10 seconds.
We are moments away from the beginning of the entry burn. You should see the graphics light up as the engines do on the bottom of your screen.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
There's the call out for the entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Again, that was slowing down the vehicle in preparation for its final burn and landing.
Now through the entry burn, as you just heard, the landing burn is coming up next. That'll start just a little bit past the 7-minute mark. We're about 20 seconds away from the start of the landing burn. Booster traveling below the speed of sound now.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there you heard that call out for landing burn start on the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute before touching down.
Landing lead deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
As you
Stage
saw
2 has entered terminal guidance.
and probably heard, we had a successful first stage landing. Coming up next, we are expecting the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine. This is known as Second Engine Cutoff 1 or
Stage
SECA 1.
2 FTS has safed.
MVAC shutdown.
There was a success.
Good call for MVAC shutdown and a nominal orbit insertion call as well. So the upper stage will now hang out in this parking orbit until T plus 56 minutes, 55 seconds. There will be a 1-second burn to correct the trajectory, put it on the right path for the start of the first deployment sequence to begin. There are 2 blocks of deployment here on this mission. Up first will be the deployment of the Kinetica Internet of Things number 14 satellite as manifested by EXO launch. That'll be jettisoned from the upper stage at T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, and 33 seconds. And that will start a deployment sequence with satellites separating anywhere between 10, 15 seconds apart, some as few as about 5 seconds apart. So it'll be pretty rapid from the roughly 1 hour point in time for the next 8.5 minutes roughly after that. Then there will be another coast period before the upper stage engine fires again for its third burn at T plus 1 hour, 43 minutes, 4 seconds. Again, that's just a quick 1-second burn on the engine. Another half-hour coast until the fourth burn of the upper stage engine. Another 1-second burn there. A brief 5-minute coast, and then the second and final deployment sequence will begin at about T plus 2 hours and 20 minutes. And that will run for about 10 minutes in total. A little bit longer than that, maybe like 13 minutes across the various deployments at that point. NASA's Pandora spacecraft is set to deploy at about T plus 2 hours, 28 minutes. the two other CubeSats that are backed by NASA. One, the Star Planet Activity Research CubeSat, or SPARCS, which was integrated by Maverick Space Systems. That'll deploy a little bit earlier than Pandora at T plus 2 hours, 20 minutes, 21 seconds. Meanwhile, Black Cat deploys just about half a minute before Sparks is released from the Falcon 9's upper stage. So all the NASA-connected payloads in the second deployment sequence, which we'll, of course, bring to you live as they happen here over the course of the Twilight mission deployment sequence. At this point in the mission, we've got a quiet period throughout the coast. Again, the burn of the upper stage engine for SES-2 set to take place at T plus 56 minutes, 55 seconds. So in the interim, we've got some nice music to let you listen to, start your morning. Now's a good time to keep the live stream up, but maybe pour yourself a cup of coffee if you're over on the West Coast. We'll be back with commentary as we get towards the burn coming up before the deployment sequence starts. And of course, we'll have this tracking map up for you so you can see the progress of the Falcon 9 rocket's upper stage, carrying all of those payloads on board the Twilight mission. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Twilight rideshare, the first of this type of small sat rideshare mission for SpaceX.
game. It's a rich thing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. You're still watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Twilight rideshare mission from SpaceX. As you can see, the Falcon 9's second stage is cruising over Antarctica as we speak. We're just about 35 minutes into this mission, about 20 some odd minutes remaining before the next burn that's coming up at T plus 56 minutes 55 seconds. That'll be just a quick 1 second burn to put the Falcon 9's upper stage on the correct trajectory for the start of the first of two deployment sequences. That will begin with a deployment of the Connecticut Internet of Things number 14 satellite. That's set to deploy T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, 33 seconds, kicking off a roughly 8-minute deployment sequence, wrapping up with a satellite called CarbSAR IOD at T plus 1 hour, 8 minutes, 22 seconds. That'll be followed by two more burns of the upper stage engine, the first at T plus 1 hour, 43 minutes, and the second at about T plus 2 hours and 15 minutes. Each of those burns just a brief 1 second burn. A couple more trajectory correction burns there, and that'll set up the second and final deployment sequence, beginning with the Lemur 2 HCS Brazos payload manifested by ExoLaunch. That first deployment at T plus 2 hours, 19 minutes, 56 seconds. And the show wraps up with the deployment of the Ether 10. Again, that's from Kepler Communications. And that'll jettison just about 2 hours and 33 minutes into this mission. We'll be back with more commentary as we approach the second out of those 4 planned burns. Again, that's coming up in about 20 minutes at T plus 56 minutes and 55 seconds. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of SpaceX's Twilight rideshare mission, sending spacecraft to a dusk-dawn sun-synchronous orbit. Hello, everyone. You're still watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the SpaceX Twilight rideshare mission. As you can see with this telemetry map, the Falcon 9's second stage is approaching the coast of Madagascar, just off of the southeast side of the continent of Africa. Currently about 51.5 minutes into the mission so far. You can see the Merlin vacuum engine is currently in a chill sequence as it prepares for a quick 1 second burn to put it on the correct trajectory for the start of the first of 2 deployment sequences. The burn is expected to happen just a hair before 57 minutes into this flight, again lasting roughly 1 second in duration. And then the deployment sequence will begin with the Kinetica Internet of Things 14 spacecraft that is set to deploy, as manifested by a company that has a presence both in Germany and the United States called ExoLaunch. ExoLaunch is responsible for the deployment of 22 out of the 44 deployments that we'll see.
Nominal orbit insertion 2.
And it looks like the burn happened about 4 minutes ahead of the advertised point on the timeline, so we'll keep that in mind for future sequences here. The SpaceX commentator noting that they'll make some comments around T plus 56 minutes ahead of the first series of deployments. So while the schedule of deployment starts at T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, 33 seconds, given that things happen about 4 minutes ahead of time, we will bear that in mind as well and make sure that we are giving you the best views and commentary as the deployment sequence starts, which should be in the next few minutes now here. As we're tracking things, getting a look at some of the payloads on board. It's manifested by Vandenberg Space Systems there on the right and ExoLaunch on the left. You also caught a glimpse of some of the 10 satellites from Kepler Communications. Again, those are part of their series of 300 kilogram class satellites. You can see those right up front there in that view. These communication satellites are designed for operation in coordination with the U.S. Space Development Agency's satellites and ground systems. As we're going through the coast phase, this brief coast phase before the start of deployment, I want to thank one of our moderators for being with us today, Aussie Space Girl, joining us from Australia. Appreciate you hanging out here today. Good to see you, Stephanie. Also taking a peek at our live chat, want to thank Phil Karn for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Phil. Says, good one from San Diego, though it was too early for sunlight. Boost phase staging, boost back, and entry burns all easily seen. Asking if we can call out events 20 seconds early to allow for YouTube delay. I think that would be a little disjointed from the visuals on screen, and we want to try to keep everything as in sync in a broadcast sense as much as possible. So if it's roughly 20-second delay to real-time events for you there in California, I think the best thing to do would just be to bear that in mind for the broadcast, since we can't really do anything about the latency from when our broadcast goes out to the strength of the connection to YouTube that you have wherever you're watching from. And so there's no really equitable way to account for that on our end. And assuming things are roughly 4 minutes moved up from the posted time, we should be coming right up to the start of the deployment sequence here. So we'll listen for callouts from SpaceX for this roughly 8-minute deployment sequence, if that amount of time is still accurate as well. Let's listen in.
Connecta IoT 14 is optimized for IoT devices in remote or hard-to-reach areas where terrestrial networks are unavailable or unreliable. And Connecta IoT 13 is part of a constellation designed specifically for direct-to-satellite IoT connectivity. Hydra 2, part of IceTech's Hydra platform and upcoming constellation, features the company's next-generation commercial multispectral thermal telescope. Manifested by ExoLaunch, it delivers advanced thermal Earth observation data for security, infrastructure resilience, and environmental monitoring. Spire Global is launching 9 satellites today, also manifested by ExoLaunch, including its next-generation hyperspectral microwave sounder, or HYMS demonstrator, a first-of-its-kind hyperspectral microwave sounder in a compact, space-ready form factor. HYMS is built to capture detailed profiles of temperature, humidity, and precipitation, helping forecasters understand how weather systems form and evolve. Spire is launching 8 satellites for customer Myriota, further expanding their IoT satellite constellation. And we're about a minute away from the expected beginning of our payload deployments.
Coming up here on the start of the deployment sequence.
Connecta IoT 14, separation confirmed. Hydra 2, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Kutar, separation confirmed. Connecta IoT 13, separation confirmed. Hawk 13B, separation confirmed.
The Cluster 13 payload from Hawkeye 360 includes advanced RF detection sensors, enhanced onboard processing, and upgraded waveform collection capabilities designed to capture a broader range of signals with greater clarity. The satellites, manifested by ExoLaunch, also feature improved data handling that streamlines the delivery of RF insights to customers. Together, these enhancements strengthen multi-domain mission support and increase overall collection capacity.
Tomorrow S11, separation confirmed. Tomorrow S10, separation confirmed.
Tomorrow S10 and S11 are the 10th and 11th microwave sounder satellites deployed as part of a constellation for weather observation across the globe. The instruments are used to significantly enhance weather forecasts with sub-hourly revisit rates of observation globally.
Connect to IoT 16, separation confirmed.
Connect to IoT 16 is the newest member of the Connect to IoT constellation, owned and operated by Plan S.
Connect to IoT 15, separation confirmed.
Connect to IoT 15 is optimized long-range wide area network-based connectivity, enabling small data packets with very long device battery life.
Hawk 13A, separation confirmed.
The next spacecraft to be deployed should be Flamingo 1, manifested by EXO launch around T plus 1 minute, 7 or 1 hour, 7 minutes in. Things are running ahead of the scheduled timeline, though, or the published timeline, I should say.
Flamingo 1, separation confirmed.
Vioma's Flamingo 1 is Europe's first commercial mission for in-orbit space surveillance. Manifested by ExoLaunch, this space surveillance mission will enable Vioma and Europe to monitor the space environment for detecting debris and international threats. Vioma's first satellite of its constellation, Flamingo 1 will contribute to European security efforts and the safe use of our orbits.
Hawk 13C, separation confirmed. CarbSAR IOD separation confirmed.
Surrey Satellite Technology and Oxford Space Systems have collaborated to build and launch an OSS-3M wrapped rib antenna mounted to an SSTL CarbSAR satellite. This in-orbit demonstration mission advances both companies' abilities, with Oxford Space Systems gaining space heritage and Surrey building its ability to integrate capability from new suppliers. The work has been jointly funded by Oxford Space Systems, Surrey Satellite Technology, Airbus Defence and Space, the UK's National Security Strategic Investment Fund, and is proving a groundbreaking synthetic aperture radar concept. And that concludes the first wave of deployments.
With this first deployment sequence, the first of two now wrapped up, SpaceX will continue on into coast phase here. The upper stage with the remaining payloads on board will coast until, well, the advertised time is T plus 1 hour, 43 minutes, and 4 seconds. But given that this mission seems to be running between 3 to 4 minutes ahead of the advertised schedule, put it about T plus 1 hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 39 minutes post liftoff is when the the third burn of the second stage should take place. Then about half an hour after that will be the fourth and final pre-deployment burn. And then we'll get into the second wave of deployments at about T plus 2 minutes, and the adjustment around 2 hours and 14 minutes thereabouts is when the second and final deployment sequence should begin. So we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary again during this roughly half-hour coast phase. We'll be back with you to mark the burn. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the Twilight rideshare mission. About half the payloads down, about half yet to go.
We should expect the start of the next burn within the next minute.
and a brief burn there of the upper stage engine.
Nominal orbit insertion 3.
And there was a successful third burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage and confirmation of good orbit.
Time now T plus 1 hour, 40 minutes, 14 seconds and counting. Got another roughly 30-minute coast phase on tap for SpaceX as they are preparing for their final burn, the fourth and final burn of their upper stage engine, which will put it on the correct trajectory for the deployment of the remaining payloads on board the Twilight mission. Getting a good look at some of those payloads remaining there. Again, that next burn said to happen at adjusting for the schedule shift from what was published to what we've been seeing throughout the course of this mission. Should be right at about T plus 2 hours and I'll say 15 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. So come back a few minutes ahead of that just to be on the safe side. For now, you're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of SpaceX's Twilight mission. Going to go ahead and crank the radio back up, if you will, let you listen to some more coasting jams, and we'll be back with you just ahead of the fourth and final burn for this mission. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the SpaceX Twilight mission. Currently approaching T plus 2 hours, 12 minutes into flight. The next milestone coming up here in the next several minutes is the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's second stage. We'll have just a brief 1-second burn to put it on the correct trajectory to deploy the remaining payloads on board the rocket's upper stage. As you can see, the engine is going through its cooling right now and will ignite again very briefly for a 1-second burn. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Nominal orbit insertion 4.
Bit of a blink and you'll miss it moment, but the engine did fire for right about 1 second there.
So there was the fourth burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage, and we had confirmation of good orbit. Coming up next is the second round of payload deployments, starting at around the T plus 2 hour and 20 minute mark. In this deployment sequence, we'll be expecting first the Lemur 2 HCS BASA satellite. Spire Global is launching 9 satellites today, manifested by ExoLaunch. Next, the Black Cat, or Black Hole-Coated Aperture Telescope CubeSat, manifested by ExoLaunch, is an X-ray space telescope that is optimized for the detection of X-ray emission from rare and bright gamma-ray bursts from the early universe. Nearby short gamma-ray bursts that are likely to accompany gravitational waves, and X-ray flares from active galaxies with supermassive black holes. Black Cat is a NASA-funded mission that is led by Abe Falcone at Penn State University, where the payload was designed and built, and also has flight software contributions from researchers at Los Alamos National Labs. You can see incredible views of Antarctica beneath Stage 2. For Black Cat, the flight-proven spacecraft bus is provided by Kongsberg Nano Avionics. D-Cubed-1 Arrakis D1, manifested by ExoLaunch, is a pioneering 3U CubeSat on a mission to build in space the way that we build on Earth, aiming to achieve humanity's first manufacturing of a structure in free space, a breakthrough known as in-space manufacturing, or ISM. During the mission, the satellite will create a 60-centimeter boom in the vacuum of space, demonstrating that complex structures can be formed far beyond our planet. This pathfinder opens the door to a future where large solar arrays, antennas, and space infrastructure are not launched from Earth, they're made in space. The Star Planet Activity Research CubeSat, or SPARCS, supported by Maverick Space Systems, is a telescope about the size and shape of a shoebox that will use thermal infrared cameras to study coronal mass ejections on small stars, aiming to understand how these eruptions impact exoplanet atmospheres. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California also participates in the mission. NASA's CubeSat launch initiative selected SPARCS in 2022 for a ride to orbit. The initiative is a low-cost pathway for conducting scientific investigations and technology demonstrations in space, enabling students, teachers, and faculty to gain hands-on experience with flight hardware design, development, and building. Capella is launching its Acadia 8 and Acadia 9 satellites, adding to its growing SAR constellation and strengthening its ability to deliver precise, reliable Earth intelligence in any weather, day or night. 45 days after launching its next-generation systems, Umbra 12 continues to operationalize the most advanced SAR fleet on the market through deeper integration and faster delivery. Built with the highest proportion of in-house, U.S.-made components to date, Umbra 12 delivers resilient, mission-ready performance across any environment, day or night, in all weather. From SAR data and complete satellite missions to critical space components, Umbra delivers what the mission demands. Pandora is NASA's latest exoplanet explorer, designed to peer into the atmospheres of previously discovered planets orbiting distant stars. Pandora is a small satellite that will study at least 20 known planets using transits, events where planets passing in front of their stars cause tiny dips in the star's brightness. These observations will lay the groundwork for future investigations of potentially habitable worlds. Kepler's payload consists of 10 300-kilogram satellites equipped with high-capacity SDA-compatible optical terminals and multi-GPU on-orbit compute modules with terabytes of storage that enable low-latency data transfer, secure routing, and edge processing directly in space. Kepler's network will provide real-time connectivity, advanced computing, and hosted payload capabilities, creating a cloud environment on orbit for critical commercial and government space missions. And we have ICE-I payloads that are manifested with ExoLaunch.
Lemur 2 HCS Basis separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Callum KJ separation confirmed. Black Cat separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Katie separation confirmed. D-Cubed 1 R Keys D1 separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Mario Souza separation confirmed. Spark separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Sonnenbloom separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Graham Isu separation confirmed. Lemur 2 Wobbler separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Fikret Dengiz, separation confirmed. Acadia 8, separation confirmed. Umbra 12, separation confirmed.
Aether 8, separation confirmed. ISI 2, separation confirmed. Acadia 9, separation confirmed. Aether 12, separation confirmed. Aether 11, separation confirmed. Aether 5, separation confirmed. ISI 1, separation confirmed. Aether 9, separation confirmed.
When the camera view, actually right now you can see a good view of NASA's Pandora spacecraft. In this view, if you look where the seam is, or when the camera view flips back, it is on the right-hand side near the top of the stack.
Aether 6, separation confirmed. Aether 4, separation confirmed. Pandora, separation confirmed.
The deployment of NASA's Pandora. There are just 3 more deployments remaining. Aether 3, 7, and 10.
Aether 3, separation confirmed. Aether 7, separation confirmed.
We are down to our last deployment here, Aether 10. You can see it there on the left-hand side of the screen here in this view.
Aether 10, separation confirmed. All rideshare payload separations confirmed.
And with that confirmation of the successful deployment of all payloads on board, this will conclude the Twilight mission, the first Twilight mission for SpaceX. This has also been their 20th dedicated small-sat rideshare mission to date, including 15 transporter missions, 4 bandwagon missions, and now the first Twilight flight. With this mission now in the books, we're going to go ahead and turn to our mission stats. They currently stand with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster that supported this mission at the beginning. That wrapped up flight number 5 for B-1097. This was SpaceX's 586th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 4th of the year so far. This was the company's 520th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 164th launch within the past 365 days, the 172nd for the company from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 241st overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's a look at the bar chart representation of Falcon missions this year and years gone by. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 32nd landing to date at LZ4, the 101st SpaceX landing on land, the 557th overall SpaceX booster landing as well. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 2nd orbital launch from California this year, the 4th from U.S. soil, the 4th from a U.S. rocket company, the 4th orbital launch from around the world. No orbital failures so far. Here's where the very singular pie chart currently stands, set to be disrupted later on tonight by the launch of a PSLV rocket from India. That mission's set to take its own rideshare satellites up to orbit. That'll be our 5th orbital launch of the year. Ignore the 24. This is the 4th launch of the year. We'll get to 24 before you know it, though. One last note from one of our channel members, Glenn Ashworth, marking 27 months with us at the pad leader level, saying good job, Will, Steven, Mods, great job, SpaceX. And that'll go ahead and do it for us on our 4th launch of the year. We've got another batch of Starlink satellites that are set to take flight from here in Florida. That's coming up tomorrow, the Starlink 6-97 mission, which will carry 29 more Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit. So if not already, hit that subscribe button and be sure to follow us on our social media channels. You can find us most places by simply searching for Spaceflight now. I want to thank our moderator, Aussie Space Girl, for being in the chat with us today, as well as one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for answering folks' questions in the chat as well. Thanks as always to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of today's broadcast. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to welcoming you back in when next we have a launch to cover. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.